So we are recording.
I will now call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners. Today is Thursday, January 16th at 7 p.m. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will you call the roll, please, Mary Beth?
Commissioner Bendy.
Here.
Commissioner Bowe.
Here.
Commissioner Halting.
Here.
Commissioner Leduc.
Here.
Commissioner Metza.
Here.
Commissioner Tunnel.
Present.
Commissioner Grau.
Here. Would anyone like to add, amend, or delete an item to the current agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. Would anyone like to make a public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of minutes. I move to approve the minutes from the December 19th, 2024 regular board and public hearing meetings.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor of the minutes? Any opposed? All right. Report of park officials. I have no report. Does our attorney have a report today?
I do have a report today. So I know. Good evening. It's really good to be with all of you. I feel like walking in the room today, everyone is very festive. I don't know if it's the new year, but I hope everything's going well despite the cold weather. So I know I've attended a few meetings over the last 18 months or so on behalf of Dirk, but I'm not sure I've had a great opportunity to really introduce myself. As you know, my name's Erin. I'm an associate attorney at Ansel Glink. I primarily assist municipalities, libraries, and park districts with a variety of day-to-day operational needs, including things ranging from land use to compliance with laws like FOIA and the OMA. And John has asked me to give a very brief presentation tonight about, related to the park board policies in advance of the district's goal to modify the board policy manual and the administrative policies for the district in 2025. And I just want to say that if you're attending the conference next week, the IAPD conference, we'll be giving a full session on board policy manuals on Saturday afternoon at 2. So I think that's the 25th at 2. So please feel free to join us. It'll be me and partner Scott Puma, and it should be a good time. It's always good to get questions from obviously your peers in park district work to see what they do and how they get creative with their policies because, really the foundational principle is the state law, the park district code gives very little express direction on what park districts need to do on a day-to-day basis or how the park board manages its business. So the delegation of that regulatory authority, how to manage parks, property, operations, programs, is really broad. So the park board has the authority to pass all rules and regulation for the proper management of park business. So what that means is because it's so broad, really the district has a good amount of discretion in how it makes policies, but we really recommend that those policies be set forth in a board policy manual, which as I've said, you certainly have one, but given the timing of the annual meeting this year, that Director Shea is still relatively new to the district and that there's an election in April, we think this is a great time to get started on some of that policy review. And I think the goal would be to have it ready to go for board consideration by the annual meeting in May. So over the next couple months, that's something we'll be exploring. So besides a few revisions over the past few years, there are a couple portions of the administrative policy book that haven't been reviewed or revised since 2012 to 2014. So it's a good time. They're ripe for a comprehensive review. And typically the contents of a strong board policy manual, and I would say the bones and the structure of the board's manual as it stands are what we like to see: general information on the board responsibilities related to leadership, community interactions, education opportunities, officer duties, committees, etc. All of those things are set forth in the board policy manual. Another piece that we always really try to delineate clearly is, board interactions and relationships with staff. And I think Commissioner Bendy, you attended Dirk's presentation last year on effective communication with your executive director, and kind of the focal point of that discussion and how it's borne out in a board policy manual is that John, as the executive director, is kind of the board's only employee. And so, how do you work through and with your executive director to see the policy goals of the district realized? And the board policy manual is just helpful for setting forth like good communication practices, how to delegate tasks, because there are so many things going on throughout the district on a day to day basis, as you all know. The board policy manual also touches on meeting procedures. So, we know we have to comply with the Open Meetings Act, but what are our remote policy rules or remote attendance rules? What are our rules for, holding on to closed session minutes, public comment? Ethics is another huge topic, and that one's really challenging, I would say, because the ethical rules for elected officials in Illinois are based in statute and common law. So there's a whole plethora of issues to address there. So as you can see, the topics that are covered are wide ranging. And as I said, the outline of the board policy manual right now is really strong. We just want to go through and review them for any updates in the law and make sure that the board, is comfortable with the direction that policy is taking and how the board operates at meetings and otherwise. And then just as a note, like there's a fair amount of overlap between the board policy manual and personnel policies. They're separate, but there's an overlap just because some of the functions that get, the board's relationship with John and John's relationship with staff and all of the working parts of the park district, sometimes there are challenging situations where what an individual commissioner does versus what a staff member does. It can get complicated. And one example is social media. So we'll probably be looking pretty closely at the social media policy as well, just because there are different implications for staff First Amendment activity on social media versus commissioner First Amendment activity. Um, you know, I've talked a lot. If you have any questions, let me know. I think the kind of the takeaway is that it will be a big undertaking because there are so many elements, from the board's perspective, from relationships with staff, from operational and meeting pieces of the policy that any questions that come up, any preferences you have or thoughts, please feel free to share them with us as we go through this process. And Dirk and I are really happy to help and answer questions.
Questions?
So I have a couple questions. How is the process going to work over time leading up to May? And are there sections, as you see, you mentioned like a couple of questions that haven't been reviewed since 2012 and 2014? Maybe the ones you just described, it wasn't clear to me that the ones you described after you made that statement are the ones you named a lot of sections, and I didn't
Sure.
know if you meant those are the ones that need to be updated.
No, and I mean, John, maybe you can talk about what your plan is for the amendments, but I think as I was kind of briefly scrolling through the administrative policies today, I think that age isn't always an indicator that they're obsolete. Obviously, some of them are just introductory sections about the park district's mission and what they do, what happens on a day-to-day basis. I will say that some of the sections on like meeting policies are, could be looked at again just because they haven't been updated in a while. The most recent amendments were just last month. We talked about the refund policy, but it's kind of been sporadic otherwise. It kind of comes up with the policy committee, I imagine, when staff brings an issue to the table. But yeah, besides that, I don't have a specific number of policies that should be updated.
So far, earlier in November, Mary Beth sent out an email with copies of our current board bylaws to have all commissioners take a look and review the information. I've been gathering data from local park districts and getting their information to create an Excel spreadsheet. I have right now about 17 different board policy manuals from neighboring communities. And then I also did send a copy of our current bylaws to Dirk for a review to make sure that any legal requirements have been updated and they're but I figured conference is a great session to start talking to people, getting more information. And then I was going to sit down potentially with Commissioner Matza, who brought up the idea of updating the policy and bringing in board members one-on-one and kind of sitting through them with them to talk about the policy manual, where we are, what updates or what concerns may have, get the information back from Aaron and Dirk as well to make sure that we are all lined up with the regulations for our board policy manual. So the goal is to get this approved before, the annual meeting. So a lot of, we got some time, but time's gonna go by quickly, as you know.
Okay, thanks.
Did that clarify your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't wait. I think you're up, John, Executive Director. Report.
Well, thank you, Aaron, for your report on your session. I do have it on my agenda to attend on Saturday, so I look forward to attending. Additionally, after this session, Aaron will have a PDF version of all of her slides I can share with the board too. And if more information is needed, Aaron also volunteered to come at a later date at a board meeting to give more of a thorough presentation. So more information to come. Speaking of conference begins a week from today, the January 23rd, and goes through the 25th next Saturday. A lot of staff will be out of the office, myself included, but we do have office coverage at all our buildings. And then there is the awards luncheon on Friday, and we did send an invite out to Senator Laura Murphy to sit at her table, and she has accepted our offer and will be sitting with us at our luncheon awards table. Speaking of local representatives, communication has been given to Representative Moylan regarding our IDOT concerns at Oakton about all the communication we've had with Oakton prior to my arrival to around this time last year through the holidays. The last information we received from IDOT was they were directing us to put all of our concerns to their comments and the requirement of the deceleration lane in a email back to them and resubmit the permit asking for a meeting. The only problem they see is that our permit manager is only in the office about 2 days a week. Do not know when or where this meeting would take place or with whom. So this is all have been given out to Representative Marty Moylan to help us with this information. And also I did reach out to Senator Laura Murphy's district director to talk with her prior to conference to get this on her radar as well and maybe be able to talk to her after the awards luncheons. More to come with IDOT. They did tell us to still submit our permit with all those questions, which White is working on and will be resubmitted. But talking with the representatives does not hurt us, and those conversations will continue this month and into next month. So some information has been received, and we're just still moving forward with that. Speaking with Oakton, the driving range polls, we had a little discussion at the last meeting regarding the driving range polls. We are currently working with White to identify what scope can we change, what can we do. I do want to preference though, if you remember in the summer, we did do a study, a trajectory study to see what the height of the poles needed to be. When we did that poll study, we found out that the proposed poles, when it was bidded out last April and was received over the budget amount of $2 million, was at a lower height, which causes issues. It causes a bigger foundation is needed to hold the pole. Wooden poles don't go that high. We would need to have the right steel poles in there. When I look at this, there's a lot of avenues to look at this for. We are enhancing Oakton Park. We have the path that goes around the building. So you're encouraging people to walk around. You're encouraging people to go to the dog park. And we also spent $38 million on a brand new building that is sheet metal. The netting helps protect the building, protect our assets, protect the patrons. We're looking to have a little trail at Oak Savannah area. There were issues before with driving range balls going over the net. So there's a lot of protection there that we need for the patrons on that park set and to protect our asset. Our goal is to rebid this work again. Rebidding it does not sit well with me that currently we only received one bid for this work. So we're talking to other park districts. I know they received one from the old Topgolf facility. It's now owned by the park district over there in, why am I drawing a blank?
Oak Grove?
Wooddale over there. And they have their company too, to see if they could help us find more people as well. I've reached out to local park districts and got different names as well. I just don't want to go with one bid. We want to get back out there. We looked at the trajectory study. There might be some poles that they had that or like assessed back behind the bays that might not be needed. So those poles could be eliminated with some netting. But besides that, the height for patron safety and to protect our asset, there's not really much we could do. And there are no wooden poles that go that high. So the bid work will go back out there. More to come on where that price will be. We'll let the board know when that bid is on the streets and when we reopen that bid as well. A couple other things at your seating. You did probably receive a invitation from Manassar regarding the Pony Spring Gala that is being held on Saturday, March 1st. Please let Mary Beth if you are interested in attending. And then also an email went out this week. We're looking to spend Valentine's Day with any board members for the legislative breakfast. It's Friday, February 14th at 8 o'clock at Heritage Oaks in Northbrook. So if you're interested in attending, please let Mary Beth know by February 7th. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Marketing and Public Relations.
Hi, my board report starts on page 9. I just wanted to point out that we have a couple of brochures going out. The camp brochure is kind of in its final stages, and it will release to the public on Monday, January 27th. Resident registration opens the morning of Monday, February 3rd. We will have the waiting room like we did last year, so heads up on that. The spring brochure will release on Monday, February 24th, and that registration will open on Monday, March 3rd. You'll also notice we're doing a lot of promotion for our preschool open house. So if you know anybody with young families, encourage them to check us out. That's on Wednesday, February 26th. And then as a part of the annual IAPD IPRA conference, the marketing department submitted entries into the agency showcase competition, and judging and the awarding takes place at conference next week. So we're excited to see how we do. And not in my report, but I wanted to recognize that the district nominated Commissioner Tunnel for a Community Star Award. And we're thrilled that he has been selected as a Community Star this year. We look forward to celebrating with you at the Night of the Stars event, which is hosted by the Park Ridge Chamber. Unfortunately, it is also on Saturday, March 1st, so we do have a decision we need to make. Congratulations. It's well deserved. That's all I.
Thank you for thinking of nominating Commissioner Tunnel. I think it's well deserved. I do have a weird question. I noticed how close the time is on the mailing of the brochures and the camps. Has it always been that close? And the mail is getting really dicey. And do we have any way of knowing if our stuff is not getting delivered? For instance, the spokesman, I never got the spokesman. I don't know if you guys all knew that one went out, but I never got it. So, yeah.
Our brochures are released electronically. We don't mail the brochures anymore. We only do a postcard to kind of support it. And I do have a couple of people in town that tell me when they got their postcards. So I do kind of keep track of the postcards. But the actual brochure is just released electronically through email.
I should have known that.
Okay.
That's my primary role here.
Yes. Karen's one of my number ones.
We could all do that for you, too.
Usually if Karen gets it, I know it when.
I'm glad Cindy's bringing this up because has it always been just like for camp a week between the brochure going out and registration? Because it is a puzzle for a parent to like do the matrix of like what if you have more than. So I didn't know if we'd ever gotten any feedback from
So it
public
used to
about
be
that being too
different when it
quick,
was
or-
an actual printed
Yeah.
publication. There was more time, and then once we switched to electronic, actually was very tight. I think we released on Friday and it opened on Monday, and we did not like that, so we built a week into it with electronic.
And we haven't gotten any feedback that that's not enough time.
No, not really.
I was just curious.
I was too. I mean, yeah.
For just like regular programming, I don't think it's a big deal, but for like camp, if you have like 3 kids and you're deciding, you're trying to map out your summer and before care and after care and get the codes and be ready for Thunderdome that
Yeah.
Monday morning, like,
That is something we could talk about with the
Yeah, I mean-
recreation staff and see. I think the only thing we'd probably do is just push registration later.
Yeah.
Like,
Sure.
I don't think we could push the release earlier. I do know, like, for the last couple weeks, I have gotten some emails like, what's happening with camp and how does it work with Worlds of Wonder? Like, I know people are anxious for it right now and what we're offering, but
Yeah, I was gonna say the similar that it would be really hard to push up, and there's always all these moving pieces and getting the information from the school district. But I'll ask again if we've gotten any feedback about that recently, or after this one, we could even include it maybe on a survey. And think about that one, but I haven't heard anything.
I mean, I did it and it was okay, but like if you're gone for work that week or, if you have other stuff going on. And I know I asked this before, when does Worlds of Wonder registration is like later? It comes later.
it's
Yeah, I think
after.
it's the 18th maybe, and we've had that conversation, and they're gonna try and align it a little bit closer next
Well, and I
year.
think they're only doing one session and a much smaller selection this year because of the construction.
Okay.
And the school district this year is going to have a more abbreviated Worlds of Wonder. I think they're only doing one session and it's like less classes. It's all going to be at one location.
That's
because
where
of
I
the
got
construction
a lot of the
schedule.
questions. It's just Monday through
longer.
Thursday this year. But our camp, our summer school camp will complement the program. So it will be the partial day, Monday through Thursday, and then the full day on Friday, which is what I've gotten the questions about so far.
That's great.
That's the 20 questions on your,
Yeah,
on your report.
that's probably half of them. I realized I didn't, and I don't know if April was going to mention it in her report, but we do a camp info night. It's Wednesday, what's that date? January 29th? I don't know. I don't have a calendar in front of me. Whatever that Wednesday is, there's a camp info night. It's virtual. And that's really helpful for first timers or anybody who wants tips. We go through how to register. We give people tips of how to put things in their carts beforehand, how to set up the payment plan when you're checking out. And it's a chance for people to ask any questions like, does staff do X or Y with the campers in this specific camp? So it is a really helpful session if people have the time to go to it. And it's virtual. So.
And it's recorded, or it was
It
last
is
year, which was
recorded
helpful.
and on the website, and we'll push it out by email again
That's
afterwards.
excellent. Pushing out by email. That's excellent.
Yeah, but it's helpful if you're at it to ask your specific questions.
Sure.
Lots of work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll stay up here for the next one.
Is that going to be me?
Yes.
That out ahead of time. Okay, we'll move on to the sign approval. I move to waive competitive bidding and approve the Oakton Sports Facility Complex signage agreement with Divine Signs and Graphics of Schaumburg, Illinois, in the total amount of $99,855, and to authorize the executive director to execute and deliver such agreement.
Second.
Any discussion? Do you want to
Sure.
kick it off?
The memo's on page 11. We received a quote from Divine Signs and Graphics. They're located in Schaumburg, Illinois, and this is for the outdoor signage at Oakton Park. And their quote is on pages 12 and 13. The quote includes the monument sign at the street, an illuminated sign on the wall of the indoor athletic field building near the entrance to the building, and 3 wayfinding signs within the park. Page 14 indicates where the signs are placed, and pages 15 to 16 are renderings of the designs. As mentioned in the memo, staff recommends the board waive the requirement for competitive bidding for this work. We have identified Divine Signs and Graphics as the most cost-effective supplier for this signage due to their current and past work with the district, As a reference, they did the signage plan and this location at Prospect Park. They also do all of our park signs in addition to a handful of other signs like our park rules and our pavilion rental signs. This does provide them with unique knowledge of our graphics standards. Additionally, White is currently engaged with Divine on the creative process for the interior signage of the Oakton Sports Complex. So contracting with Divine provides continuity of work for all the signage of the project. And these critical performance assets would be lost in a competitive bidding setting. For these reasons, and as permitted by the park code for work like this, which by its nature is not adapted to competitive bidding. The total amount of the quote, as Cindy mentioned, is $99,855, and we had identified $125,000 for this work. Once improved, Divine does coordinate all the permits with the city of Park Ridge, and then signage, manufacturing, and install will take about 8 weeks after the permit is received.
Is there any life expectancy for, say, the big sign that's on the outside of the building? Or
Yeah, didn't ask. We could look into that, but generally those kind of last a long time. I don't know if they all should last as long as we've kept them up, but
Let's look at a couple of our.
looking at
parks.
Terry. That's true.
I thought it was interesting the faux brick was 77,000.
We're not doing that faux brick option.
Oh, okay.
On there. You'll notice in the memo, there's a line that White is providing everything up to, like, including the masonry work. So we're doing real masonry through the trades. Yeah, it's not faux. They just didn't take things off the quote that we weren't taking. You'll also know that there's item 3 and item 4. I made a note on, I think it's item 3, that we're taking option number 4. So 3 isn't included.
Okay.
I had a question.
Mhm.
I understand why you're asking us to waive it. I was wondering if you or staff did get a second quote or a third quote.
Not specifically on this, but I have bid out other projects that we've had with the other sign company that we work a lot with, and Divine is always much cheaper on this size of signs.
And we didn't want to at least attempt. Does it cost money to get a quote?
No, but if we want to stay with a company that we have a relationship with and we have used before, the other one outsources this level of signage, so it's usually about 25 to 30% higher. I'd be surprised if he's anywhere close, but I could ask him.
And I've not been involved in this particular, part of the work on this, but I also am aware that there's been a significant amount of time involved with not only Margaret and staff, but White, just even getting to this point. And to her point, a lot of times when you continuously reach out to some of these other vendors that you're not working with because their price comes in, it can be challenging to work with too. So I hear your point, and I'm not, like, Margaret and I have not had this conversation, but in defense of the idea of reaching out to that other company, that can be a very time-consuming process that might get you nowhere at all with a company that's not familiar with our work anyway.
Is this a time-sensitive issue?
We do want to have the signage up by the time we open, and
Where reaching out to somebody else, it would delay it, or putting out a competitive bid would delay it.
competitive bid would definitely delay, but getting other quotes, it really depends on somebody's turnaround, where we've had to really prod people before to get quotes. So sometimes there is.
We also still need to build in time. We have time built into that for permitting with the city as well, which could,
The signs are always, I understand.
yeah,
I just trying to wrap my head around the justification of
sure.
$100,000 where we're
No.
just going with one company.
I think we all appreciate that.
No, and I trust staff. That
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't trust the
Right.
thing. I'm just trying to wrap my head around a yes vote.
And
That's all.
I think I'm just trying to help everyone give you your
Oh, no,
ability
yeah,
to have
yeah.
that conversation with the neighbor when they're asking you about
it-
that. So, in fairness.
I've almost been doing this 2 years. I think this is the first time we've waived something. That's why I was asking. Yeah. No. So that's the government contracts where we pool the stuff together. That feels different than this.
We've done this, but in different ways, and we've used different terminology, I think, in the past. So
Okay.
this was a new way that Dirk described to bring it forward. A lot of times we do have a lot of times cooperative bidding available to us, but there have been a few rare instances where we've had a thing or two, and it may not have been in your tenure, that we've had an item that was, unique and not, subjected to competitive bidding because of its artistic nature or whatever.
Or the
it was.
details
So,
involved.
yeah.
I mean, this is a 2-page quote is a lot of details.
Yes, it is. So,
Thank you.
yeah, no, you're welcome.
I think it's always good to question a no bid, so. And we get more information. And the first part, like that you work with them before, it wasn't very, I didn't really understand until you started saying, that they farm it out and blah, blah, blah. So that helps. And also, if they're doing all the other signage over there, it kind of is a no-brainer, in my opinion. But it's really good to get that additional information. Other questions? All right, can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Halting,
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc,
Aye.
Commissioner Matza,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel, Commissioner Bendy, Commissioner Grau.
Aye.
Thank you.
Right, Human Resources Director Riker.
All right, good evening. First thing I wanted to mention is not on my report. Kind of after I wrote the report, if you recall, a few months ago, we talked about the Illinois Child Labor Law of 2024 and how one of the components of it was you had to have a supervisor who was at least 21 years of age or older in order to have, while the 15-year-old was working. So we've heard, it was about late last week, we heard that there is an amendment that's passed the House. It's now going to the governor to be considered for signing. So we're just eagerly awaiting for him to sign it. And if that does go through, then we would discuss bringing that option back. So we're eagerly awaiting. To note, it can take up to 90 days from the time it passes the House to get the governor signing it. They have 30 days to get it to the desk and then 60 for him to sign. So we're looking at any time between now and April 6th. So I'm really hoping sooner than later. I know staff are very eager, but we are excited about that coming sooner than expected. So I wanted to share that. We are working with staff to start seeing and posting summer jobs. It's time to start hiring soon. Full-time performance evaluation processes are in the works. Staff are working diligently on that. And then we are very, very excited to work on implementing the advanced scheduling system in our Paycom Human Resource Information and Payroll System. It'll bring everything more in a streamlined and centralized place for staff and supervisors and everyone. So we're really excited about that. It has a lot more flexibility within it that will help fit the needs of a park district that has varying schedules for varying areas. So that is on the training schedule for January and February. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is the employee advanced scheduling thing, is that, was it new software or was it in the
So
budget or whatever?
It's part of
Yep.
our HRIS, our human resource and payroll software company we utilize. It's a new module of it.
So some add-on thing?
It's an add-on, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And what it doesn't, what is it going to do? I mean, what is it going to enhance for your?
Sure. Great question.
I was just curious.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So right now, our various areas use different scheduling systems, anywhere from Google Docs to One to Work to other things to nothing at all. And so it's really across the board. So as payrolls, as our payroll administrators looking at payroll, looking at time cards, if she has a question, she doesn't necessarily have access to look at that and reference. So what this does is it brings it all into one system. The employees only have to log in and remember one login. Supervisors have access to create the schedules, it'll then there's a tab, like you see their time card, and there's a tab where you can toggle and see the schedule right there and see if they clocked in when they should have, or if it, so there's a lot of great components to it. Um, Staff can choose to subscribe to their calendar, and it will update their schedule on their mobile device, which is nice. And really, it's just everything's kind of been everywhere. So it's going to bring it all in to one central location and really help streamline their processes.
Yes.
So we're very excited.
And you can keep track of where everybody is on their hours, right?
Mhm.
And did we have this before? This module?
No, so when we purchased Paycom, it comes with a basic scheduling. So think of your 9 to 5 manufacturing job, for example. So there's not a lot of flexibility within it, where with park districts, you might have employees working different shifts and different schedules, and it couldn't do that. So with their advanced piece that they rolled out probably a few years after we had implemented here, it really helps create those flexibilities because park districts are intricate in the payroll and timekeeping world.
Yeah, that's
Companies
great.
love us.
So I look at the checks every week, and is this going to be a monthly thing? Is it a yearly lease thing? What is it?
So the way Paycom bills is per pay period. So every pay period, our payroll administrator gets the bill. It provides, what we owe taxes wise and wages, but then also it provides
Their fee. That's what I'm
their
talking about.
administrative fee. If you
Yeah.
So yeah, so, it's a
monthly? Or no,
it's
quarterly?
per paycheck.
Every-
And the nice thing, which is nice that I like about it, is you could have 1,000 active employees in the system, but if only 400 have a live check on that pay period, you're only charged for those 400, which is kind of nice. So then you're not worrying about constantly making sure it's very up to date, because in the park district world, we have staff sporadically working.
So this will come online for everybody in a month or two or something, or after your training?
So the goal is we're first doing like a train the trainer with Paycom on Monday, HR and payroll, and then we will bring all of our supervisors, managers, and other scheduling staff in to train them as well and go through that. And then they'll set up their schedules. We'll help them if they need that. And then it's up to them to roll it out as they see fit with their various areas.
Fascinating. Well,
Yeah, we're very
I hope
excited.
it
I'm
saves
very
you time.
hopeful.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
wonderful. Thank you.
A question about the labor law.
Yeah.
Does it affect who we hire, or does it affect scheduling and staffing? Like if it passes?
Bit of both. So if it passes, we would potentially be able to hire 15-year-olds again, because it would amend having, right now, if you have a 15-year-old working, the direct supervisor on site has to be at least 21.
Yep.
What it amends to is they have to be at least 18, which we could comply with.
Yep. So if it takes the 90 days and you guys start hiring soon,
So right now, right.
is that where it's going to get?
It's a little challenging right now. So right now we need to post as
push the
16 and
governor to
older.
sign it?
Yes, please. So, but the nice thing is once we get the job postings up, it's very easy in the system to tweak a little thing in there to change that. It's
Like
just
staffing,
Yeah.
long term, like once the 90 days when summer comes, it'll be
Yeah.
makes it a lot easier for managers to.
And what I've read is once it's signed, it goes into effect immediately, which is nice. So, yeah. Of course. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
We have a great lobbying group. Yeah. That's all I have to say. All right. Over to finance.
Hey. All right. I will turn it over to Superintendent Larson.
Great, thank you very much. My report begins on page 18. I just wanted to highlight that the December numbers included are preliminary in this report. So if you think about it, this is sort of a normal monthly close, what's in this report. And then we start in January, we start doing accrual journal entries. We start doing, staff will reach out to us with reclasses. So everyone's sort of looking backwards and forwards at the same time, especially in finance. So accounts payable, Commissioner Bendy, you may see if you're asking to view invoices, they'll say 2024 accrual on there, which these are things that really were purchased and used in 2024, but we're not paying for until 2025 just because of the timing of the invoice. So what we do is we pay them in 2025, but we do an accrual journal entry. I could go on forever about all of this. So I'll try to make it brief, but I'm just trying to give everyone a context of what's happening in our department right now. So we keep track of the accrual journal entries for accounts payable. We will also do an accrual for payroll. So because of the timing of payroll, the first payroll in 2025 actually covers the very end of 2024. So we make sure we put that in 2024. So there's a lot of that going on right now. And then there will be some, bigger entries related to capital and things that Terry and John and I work on. But right now, this month, what my team is focused on doing is just getting as much in as possible so that the next report you receive in January will give us a fuller picture of how things are winding up for the end of the year. So that's really all I wanted to highlight, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anything? No? Okay, great. Good.
I want to thank our IT director and executive director for going to court the week of Christmas. I think it's really important that we hold people accountable for their actions. And I know it wasn't fun, but it was a lot of work and it was successful. And I appreciate that.
Either Karen or myself will relay that back to Eileen as well, so she knows. So thank you.
Yep.
All right, approval of account expenditure list. All right, I move to approve the payment of expenditures in the total amount of $766,328.92.
Second.
Thank you. All right, any questions?
I did see Director DeGangi's name on there. I know it's a little late to ask, but I was just curious if anybody knows what that
Sure.
was.
So she received a service award because for her prior service, and her bank account. She had changed bank accounts, and so it bounced back to us. So then we just reissued it.
Okay, and just another funny comment. Both Commissioner Leduc and I noticed the word fuzzies on the on the check requests, and that might be the most interesting word I've seen on there.
Fuzzies on
For the collectively for the guinea pigs, bunnies, and ferrets.
Oh yeah, I love yes,
Names.
yes.
And I noticed that April and Andy's vet, they were actually listed by name as well.
Yes, yes. That's what makes my job fun, is finding those little Easter eggs.
All right, can we get a roll call on that?
Yes. Commissioner Halting,
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc,
Aye.
Commissioner Metza,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel, Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau.
Aye.
Okay. I move to approve the ordinance number 25-1. An ordinance providing for the issue of not to exceed $1,740,000 general obligation limited tax park bonds, Series 2025, of the district for the payment of land for parks, for the building, maintaining, improving, and protecting of the same, and the existing land and facilities of the district, and for the payment of the expenses incident hereto, provided for the levy of a direct annual tax to pay the principal and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the proposed sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof.
Second.
Thank you. Want to tell us about this?
That was excellent.
Yeah. The grammar was a little weird, I thought.
So this is the next step in our bond issuance process. This is passing the ordinance. After we do this, then the bond term sheets will be distributed to potential purchasers the week of January 20th. And then we should be able to hopefully approve a sale the week of February 10th, and that with the bond closing at the beginning of March. So again, while closing is happening for the fiscal year, we're also on our bond issuance calendar.
Any questions or thoughts on this?
I just had one tiny silly thing. On your memo, it says every 2 years, and I think every 1 or 2 years is more accurate.
Okay.
or however you want to phrase that.
Just
in the
make it more, a little
Yeah.
more general. so-
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
that makes
I
sense.
think, Mike, this is the second time we've done 2 years, maybe the third, but whatever. So,
I'll make note of that. Thank you.
and it looks like it's right that we're doing two at once
Yeah.
with the way the bonds are. Yeah.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Leduc,
Aye.
Commissioner Metza,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel, Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Halting,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau.
Aye.
Let me turn it over to Commissioner Leduc.
Thank you. And I will turn it over to Superintendent Armour.
Thank you. So December, there were many exciting events available for all ages to finish up the year. So we had Santa's Letters, an Elfin Training Workshop, the Santa Trail, Grinching, the Star Holiday Party, a preschool winter sing, and New Year's parties for both families and active adults. And last but not least, of course, Swim with Santa. And on page 66, we usually recap the year of our Customer Experience Committee. So there were lots of things throughout the year for both patrons and for staff to bring people together and to show appreciation and to train. So a lot of different things going on throughout the year, and just finalizing our plan for this year as well. I did also want to point out the summary of the 2024 Wildwood visitors on page 68. If, in case you didn't notice, it's over 22,000 visitors came in 2024, and that's pretty awesome for such a small facility. I mean, it really shows how much the community supports and appreciates the efforts that we made with the facility. So it's great. Couple things about the fitness center. So our 2024 goal was to reach 3,300 members by the end of the year, and we were just shy of that. But I'm happy to report that we have already reached that number. So that's that will show in the next month's report. But that was reaching our pre-pandemic membership goal. So that's pretty exciting. Staff was
Congratulations.
a lot of efforts and outreach and passing out all the free, 2-week trials and tracking. And so it's paying off. So that's great. And December was also quite busy for personal training, group fitness, and the additional swim lessons again offered over the break. It's a great program that parents are definitely appreciating. And as Margaret already mentioned, we're finalizing the camp brochure, working on spring brochure. So along with the camp brochure comes, the behind the scenes with updating forms, the parent manual, everything else, so not just the brochure. And, there were some kind of last minute adjustments to accommodate the updated school schedule. So we do have an extra week of camp, so 11 full weeks of camp. Yeah. And of course, what was already mentioned, the change in the summer school. So that's going to be a little bit different for our staff as well to accommodate, the 4 days on, 1 day off, and transportation, etc. But we did end up with 3 school locations for summer camp, so that was very helpful. And, just getting ready for that very busy time of year. So, wish us luck in finding staff for camp next week. Never gets
What
back.
schools are you getting for, what schools are you going to get for summer?
Franklin, Carpenter, and Lincoln.
Okay. Thank you.
The upcoming events, did you always list if it was registered or free?
Yes.
I'm just noticing. I apologize.
Yep.
I'm glad it's there. Thank you.
What part of August did we say that Oakton would be open, or are we thinking it would be open? Like August 1 or?
We've just said August of 2020.
I know.
We have a, we're progress is going well, but you never know what could happen. We have a scheduling meeting scheduled for Tuesday, April, Terry and myself to talk with White. So we'll have a little bit more information then, but we're not at the time yet to broadcast a specific date. So we're just
Well,
holding out.
I don't want to, and it's probably not the right place to ask, but I'm just thinking about 11 weeks camp and then Oakton opening at the same time. That's wow. Wow.
It's going to be a busy year.
But good stuff.
All right. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Seeing none, and I don't have any motions, so I'll pass it on to Commissioner Bowe for Buildings and Grounds.
All right. And Terry, before you get started, I just want to commend you guys for all your work on the ice rinks outdoors. I know you spend hours and hours, and I love the fact that you actually got some payoff on this, where you've actually had an extended period of freezing weather for a change. I got over there myself with one of my daughters, and we had a great time, and the rinks were packed. And just really just such a great testament to all the work you guys do. I know it's every year is a struggle, and hopefully now it's kind of paying off for you. So
Thank you. I was actually going to open up with Ice Ice Baby and a Vanilla Ice rendition of a song that I made up for that, but you kind of stole my thunder. So but in all honesty, yeah, we've put a lot into it this year. I think the decision to break the rinks down into smaller rinks have made it so much more manageable and more flexible. We have now 4 rinks out there, and there's been multiple times where maybe one of the rinks was closed to be repaired or worked on while the other rinks were open. In the very beginning, we were able to get 2 rinks up and running for that quick day or two where we had a flash freeze and we jumped on it. And I was checking with our peers at an MIPE meeting, and even at the point where we were at 6 days that we had ice open, not a single other park district had ice anywhere outdoors yet. So we definitely jumped in front of it and got ahead of everybody. As of today, we've had 310 total labor hours into this. Of that, 100 of those hours are spent making repairs on the ice, which are almost 100% due to the fact that people don't want to believe our flag system, where we put out, not because we're trying to penalize people or keep them off our ice and scratch up our pretty ice, but really just because it's not ready for people to skate on. So, and that's what causes those other rinks to be, some of those rinks to be closed. So that's unfortunate. We made a decision as a while ago when we bought these as a district that we didn't want to surround those with fencing because of the way it would look, and it's understandable, but that 100 hours is a direct result of that. And so I'm just, we've had a chance to now kind of coordinate and organize, how we're tracking the work that we're putting into that. And so I asked to get that number so that we can understand it. We have been open a total of 192 hours, which is 14 and a half days of ice skating, which is probably more than we've had collectively in 5 years, probably. So it's been a pretty good year so far. We'll have a little warm up this week to probably help level it off a little bit over the next few days, and then it's going to get right back cold again. So, yeah, definitely plenty of ice this year.
Well, and I remember last year, weren't there like a couple of rinks were South Park and a couple were Oakton?
Yeah.
Next year when Oakton's open, are you going to go back to that kind of setup, or do you think you're going to leave them all?
We'll have to look at that and talk about that and decide if it's whether it's Oakton within the driving range, or maybe if we want to explore another park, maybe we could put one at. They used to be at other parks, when before I got here. I understand they had areas that were depressed in different parks where they flooded other locations. So I think that'll be a conversation between myself, John, April, the rec department, and what really makes sense. One of the challenges that we have with the ice rink is the turf bounce back. So the driving range opens pretty early in the season, and if we have a late season, we haven't had it in a while, But I do remember within my tenure here having conversations with baseball about they wanted to get out and practice and have fields ready, the first week of April, and we were looking at frozen ground and snow in April. Well, we opened the driving range not too different than that. So if we had an ice rink out there, that would effectively cause us to not be able to open the driving range. So while it hasn't happened lately, it can happen. And so I think at some point we just want to make sure we have that conversation, are comfortable with what we're kind of shoehorning ourselves into. So that's all.
So I was thinking it might also be nice if there was one at Centennial as a kind of a complement to the sledding hill.
Sure. Yeah, there might be a location out there off to the side, obviously not at the bottom of the sled hill, but yeah. Yeah.
That would
We're
get
going to make it real interesting. But
like a safe distance from the sledding hill. but in the
we'll build ramps so they sail over the top of the yeah, straight to it. So no, I think the idea of potentially putting them elsewhere instead of theirs is fine. But I think now that we can break them down into smaller pieces, we bought just a few extra boards to add in more corners so that we could break down the sizes we had and made them more effectively manageable. We have a few more possibilities, so we'll continue to look at that.
When we advertise our free amenities, do we put that in there? Because that's a lot. Like we've tried to quantify our free amenities, movies in the parks, blah, blah, blah. 300 man hours, that's a lot, I don't know where we keep track of that, but I've seen it before.
It's probably the first time I've had that time to give you, or the amenities, like the hours to identify or share with anybody. So maybe it's a new opportunity for them, but yeah.
Is Franklin School still a viable location, for next year?
I don't know.
There used to be, and all it was I think they just got a hose out there and sprayed it around. And
Yeah, we would have to look at anywhere we look at, we would have to take a look at it. Like even the spot that we have at the driving range is a little challenging, and it only has a few inch grade difference over the course of 80 feet, and it causes the ice to be like 8 or 9 inches thick on one side and like 3-4 inches thick on the other, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But it's a rare year where you can get 8 inches thick of ice. And so what that means is that we have, 3-4 inches of ice on top and then water underneath. Well, when you get 20, 30, 40 kids out there, the weight of that pushes and breaks that ice off and squirts all that water out. It makes it not work. So it's a very simple thing, but at the same time, it creates a problem there. It's a hydrology problem over the course of so you have to make sure things are relatively flat. So, we can identify a couple areas and go out there with some, transits and, grade it out and see what the elevations are. So, yeah. So, to be continued next season. Who knows? Next year it might not be cold enough to have any ice at all again. So, moving on, as we're going through the report, which does start on page 74, I do just want to mention that the sustainability plan will be presented and discussed at the February 6th meeting. Lauren will be joining us to talk through that. However, in making sure that you have plenty of time to preview that, I will be sending that out within the next couple of days to the board, so you have a chance to kind of look through it. If you have any questions during the next week, I would ask that you send those questions to myself or Jennifer. Lauren's taking a week off to recharge. But in any case, you could also just hang on to the questions and just, hear what she has to say and present at the meeting. But I think overall, you'll be pretty happy and see that it meets the goals and what was, determined and discovered with the surveys that were done and a lot of discussions that were had. So, but those will be in your inboxes in the next few days. Let's see, John mentioned most of the things with IDOT and Oakton. I do also want to mention with the Oakton bids that we did previously mention that we had the roofing bid opened at that in December. We did give White the okay to move forward with that phase 2 roofing bid, which also included the replacement of the skylights on the existing ice rink. And also you'll notice in my report that we have a solar bid being developed What I want to point out is that we've had the conversations. We've, obviously designed the buildings. We're engineering for it. We're planning for it. Whether or not we're going to put it on the street and we can afford it right now is kind of at that like, let's see where everything plays out, where the budget's at. But we're preparing for it. We're also identifying potential infrastructure to get, conduit chases and things to go from the turf building where the primary panels would go into the electric room where we can run them outdoors under the concrete now as an option. So like, all right, maybe we don't have the money for the whole thing right now, but let's get this conduit run in here so that we've got the chaseway. So we're not trying to run that through a lobby later on. So we're putting in some infrastructure and some backbone there for those sort of things. So I just didn't want anyone to get the wrong idea that this is like infinitely coming down the road, but we're planning and preparing and doing everything we can for it. So South Park, we're close. The playground's basically done. We do need to have a drop test, which is the test to make sure that the safety surfacing complies. We were prepared to do that. However, all of a sudden we had a snap of the cold that we can't really do that test appropriately and have it reflect accurately when it's got snow, ice, and it's frozen ground. So we do need to wait on that. So we're holding off before we open that up. I don't really think there's a lot of desire, and our signage actually indicates you shouldn't be using playgrounds when there's ice and snow on them anyway. So, so until we can get that done, that playground will remain closed. And then again, just a reminder, once the entire project is done, we'll have a ribbon cutting, which will be, probably late spring, early summer sometime when the whole project is done. So one thing I wanted to point out, I've updated the 2025 / carryover 2024 capital projects grid. In my rush to build this just before the board report was due, I noticed that I missed a few X's and a few boxes, such as South Park. I didn't identify that clearly the South Park OSLAD grant is much further along than in design and permitting. So I made a few, obviously I did update some of the things, but just apologize that it's not 100% up to date. I'll make sure that it's completely accurate at the next meeting. So my apologies there. And then finally, I did want to end with a little bit of good news tonight. We did learn this afternoon that the application rather for the EV chargers through the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus application was actually awarded today. If those of you know Tim Milburn, I'm sure you might have heard this already, but so it was awarded. We're really excited. There were 34 different municipalities in the Chicagoland that gathered together to submit a $14+ million grant. Our portion of it is it's a small $46,000 for our EV chargers over at Oakton, but we were very excited that we were successful in getting that. We will have a 20% match, which is about $11,500 or so that we will have to contribute towards that. But we are the only park district to have participated in any part of that whatsoever. So, yes, and that is a grant that is funded through the Federal Highway Administration charging and fueling infrastructure. So Lauren did a good job finding that, keeping up with it, going through the application and doing all that. So
Did you say we would have been on top of that if we didn't have Lauren?
I would say we would have not had enough time to keep that on our radar. There's just no way.
That's great news.
Yeah.
When Lauren started, I referred her to the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus as a resource for information, and she jumped right on it and stayed plugged because I knew about that grant, and I wondered if that was the one we were a part of because I saw Edith Macra post about it on LinkedIn. So I was like, is that the one that... So I'm
Our
very...
city could have done that too, but our city could have done that too, but they don't have anybody to do that, to watch those things. They could have written a grant, but they would have had to known it was there. And
Well, they could participate in the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus meetings and gain access to such information. That's great. No, I saw that on LinkedIn yesterday for me.
Good job.
So I was like,
Yep.
that was the one we were on.
Yeah, I mean, it is really great. I've said it before. Lauren's a great asset for our team and the park district in general. I mean, she brought in that. She's been on top of the grants and money that we got back on the 2 electric vehicles. We just got $10,000 back on that. We had the EV chargers paid for that we've got installed in the building. So all of these were areas that, not that we're not interested, not that we don't want it, but it's hard to keep up on that when you have all these other things going. So to have one person dedicated to keep an eye on all that, and even when I was at a meeting and I had a chance to interact with someone, that's pitching solar and a idea for how to bring solar with PPA agreements. We had a brief conversation. I got his contact information, and I said, I'm going to connect you with our sustainability coordinator. And I, provided the information to Lauren. She followed up with him. And then within 2 days, she's sitting down and saying, yeah, I've already talked with Jim, but here's the update. Here's a few things that have changed and blah, 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 blah. And like, there's just an immediate, like, here's where we're at. So it's great.
I just bring this up because the city says they have people to write grants, and that's nice that you have someone to write grants, but oftentimes it's more than that. It's looking for them, staying on top of them, being aware of them. And this is her job, her sole job. So if we do any press about this, if we can somehow include that it's not just that we wrote a grant, but that we found it and stayed on top of it, because this was one that we didn't qualify for. But every time, it changed, she was on top of it. Okay, what now? What now? I think it was the third round of grants that they gave out that we got. It was definitely at least the second.
Yeah, I think it's the second, but I think it's the second through the federal. But you're right, we didn't qualify, and so, but she was on top of the fact that the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus was putting together a group of people to apply for this, and had she not had her ear to the ground on that, there'd be no way. And it not even necessarily, I mean, she actively worked with them for our needs within that grant. Like, they really did the grant writing, really. So it wasn't even like she had to do the grant writing. It was just really a function of her being open and, having her ear to the ground and keeping an eye on things and updating us and making sure that we followed through to get it all done. So,
And it takes someone dedicated to that to make it happen.
for sure.
So thank you.
So you said we're the only park district to be a part of that.
Only one in Illinois for sure. I mean, when I looked nationally, they gave out hundreds of millions of dollars, but there's none that are called out. Like, it's all major cities or, tribal regions and things like that. So I'm sure there's like park regions, but no like park districts itself.
When they first came out, they were very large, so nobody qualified. Not nobody, but like if you were a IDOT or whatever, you could qualify, but Park Ridge wasn't going to qualify.
That's what's great about MMC is they've done this for the Soul Smart program and all these programs. They've done this on multiple occasions where they're leveraging federal resources on behalf of tens of suburbs, and that's the whole point, is to make it easier for the little guys to access this. I think this was infrastructure bill money or IRA money, so it's sort of once the opportunity doesn't come along very often, it's bill money. But it's within the bipartisan infrastructure law, and that doesn't come along every day. So I think that was, anyway, it doesn't matter.
Was the 40, was the 46,000, was that a small amount compared to the others, or was it bigger?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was 34, municipalities in total. We were one of them, and the total award for that group consortium was over $14 million. So it was
Smaller,
yeah, but it was what we had a need for, that we had a clear, identified need for at the time. And all the other ones are cities and municipalities. So.
All right. Thank you. And in regards to the scoreboards purchase, I move to approve the agreement with Sievert Electronic in the amount of $50,279 and to authorize the executive director to execute and deliver such agreement. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
So, board memo for this is on page 83. This is part of the owner purchase items for the Oakton project. As you can see, this is just slightly over budget. for what we had anticipated for this. But the reason for the overage is because of the addition of some advertisement panels that we hadn't originally anticipated, but after some discussion, decided it made sense to include at this time, and that money would likely be recuperated over time. So, in general, this is again just it serves the needs that we had identified for the scoreboards, both in the turf area. There's 2 there, 2 in the existing ice rink, 1 in the studio rink, and then time clocks in all the locker rooms that are connected to the scoreboard in the main rink, so that teams that are readying themselves in the locker rooms will know when the games are just about done, so they can prepare themselves to be out on the ice. So.
Margaret doesn't have a microphone. I don't know if you want to run up there, but she's looking for sponsorships for these, which is awesome. So yes, it might go over, but we might end up not paying as much for the signs with sponsors. Yep.
Any other comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Matza?
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel? Commissioner Bendy? Yes. Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Halting?
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc?
Aye.
Commissioner Tunnel? I'm sorry, Commissioner Grau. Sorry.
I was like, oh, I don't get to voting.
You do. Sorry about that.
And that moves forward in regards to the athletic field marking robot, not a marketing robot. I move to waive competitive bidding and approve the purchase agreement with Tiny Mobile Robots in the amount of $39,900 and to authorize the executive director to execute and deliver such agreement. Second. Terry?
So we're requesting to waive again. We did have Turf Tank, which is the other big company that provides this sort of amenity, the robot. We did get a proposal from them. They were over $50,000. They really, really, really didn't even want to give us a price to purchase it. They only wanted to rent it to us and have a subscription agreement that was not going to be in our best interest, we didn't feel. And they had proprietary paint that we were going to have to purchase, which we didn't really like either. So this one is one that Schaumburg Park District has been using very successfully. We are more than free to use whatever paint we'd like to. In fact, it does work really well. We understand what the paint we already use, which we tried switching years ago and was not successful with switching paint. So we're kind of, really happy with the way this one worked out, and they were more than happy to give us a purchase price on, although we could have just subscribed to it and paid a monthly rental fee as well. So overall, when we looked at it, this was the one that seemed to make the most sense. They don't have a purchasing, cooperative agreement anywhere at this time. So I could, because of it being a sole source though, I can go anywhere in the world and I'm going to come right back to the same local distributor that's going to sell me this. So I can put out any bid that I want to purchase this particular piece of equipment, and we're going to come right back to the same person giving me the same price. So it's not a line for competitive bidding. So, which is why we're asking for this to be waived. So I think we've talked about this in the capital projects. This is something that is really going to cut down drastically our time for lining this year. It's going to be GPS based. So we'll set everything up. Staff will bring it out to the park, fill it with paint. It'll start lining out the fields without the need to actually go out and measure them. We'll be cutting our time down to about 1/8 of the amount of time that it takes us now to do the initial lining out. So I have a verbal and emailed written commitment from one of our affiliates to help offset this by $10,000, but I didn't show that in the budget because I haven't really seen anything further than that verbal and an email commitment there. But once that happens, I'll let the board know how that worked out. So any other questions?
We use this, I know we use it for football. Is it in soccer, correct?
Football, soccer. We also line baseball, lacrosse.
Okay. Is there anything we use as a park district for lining, or is it just for the affiliates?
Well, we have, I know we have some of our own programs, but like we do have like softball programs and things like that. But I think, I don't know how many of in-house, like, well, I know lacrosse is currently, but they're moving towards an affiliate status. So that would be the only one at this time that I can think of, right?
Yeah, and we have some of our own like youth programs too that do soccer and baseball and
Yeah.
there's things at Main Park. And
But it's going to save staff time and all that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So when you set up this big Roomba, what, how do you, do you have to have someone babysit it or what?
There will be someone in the park, but it'll be, they have to be in the park with iPad that it's communicating with, but it also, they'll have to keep refilling it with paint every so often. We currently have 2 staff members that spend Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday every single week in the fall lining fields. So what our expectation is now, and it takes them 8+ weeks to like lay out and measure out all the different athletic fields for the fall season. So we expect this will get it down to a week or less. So that'll be the huge time saver, but then the ongoing upkeep will be even better. We expect that what'll happen is they'll be able to kind of Ron Popeil set it and forget it and just be able to do some other work, and then it'll let them know when it needs to be refilled with paint. They'll fill it with paint. They'll work on other things while they're in the park. So,
Okay, so
little few, kind of like the.
there'll be security. There'll be some security on it.
Oh yeah, we're not gonna just leave it there for someone. But even if we did, it's got GPS, so we'll know where it goes. So. Yeah. So. Yeah, everyone's pretty excited about it, and we were really excited that this particular platform had everything in English and Spanish too. So.
Margaret, are you gonna like name it and put a cute little decal on? Okay. Because I looked up a picture of what the motto was, and it's kind of cute in a weird robot way. We're putting googly eyes. Yes.
I submit Painty McPaintface. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Tunnell? Commissioner Bendy?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Halting?
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc?
Aye.
Commissioner Matza?
Yes.
Commissioner Grau?
Aye.
Move forward, and in terms of the purchase of the Bobcat, I move to approve the purchase of a 2025 Bobcat UW56 from Atlas Bobcat in the amount of $83,206.77 and authorize the executive director to execute and deliver such agreement. Second, anyone? Second. Discussion.
So this is one of our 2 toolcats. They're Bobcat toolcats. They have become just an absolute workhorse in our fleet, and one of the vehicles or pieces of equipment that our staff just continues to find more and more uses for. It's kind of the Swiss Army knife. It's got interchangeable attachments for the front, so it doesn't matter what season it is. It's useful, and they use it for everything they can, from whether it's brooming the snow, snow blowing the snow. It's got bucket attachments. We have stump grinders, trenchers, everything. Like anything you can think that we need to do. We have 2 of them. We started with 1 years ago. We needed a second. And this one's it's beat up and due for replacement. Last year, a 4-person Kramer had to completely rebuild the inside of it because it had rusted through. You could Fred Flintstone this thing down the street because of the holes in it. So, so it was definitely due. We got it all the way to the finish line when it was on the replacement schedule, because it is an expensive piece of equipment, but very heavily used and needed for our park district. So, so that's it in a nutshell.
Anybody want to submit a name already for naming that? Bob. Roll call?
Commissioner Bendy?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Halting?
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc?
Aye.
Commissioner Matza?
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel? Commissioner Grau?
Aye. All right, we move on to policy. Do we have any policy tonight?
Nothing to report.
Intergovernmental. Do we have anything intergovernmental?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Any communications and correspondence? Nothing? Any new business? Okay. Well, I move to adjourn the meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? God. Thank you. Great meeting.